Hello.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
Yeah, not bad. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like a new man after having had my hair cut finally for the first
Wow.
time in
Do you
several
look
months.
like? Is that James?
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like a shaved monkey, but yeah, I feel all right.
So you went to the barbers then, did you?
Yeah, thankfully it wasn't a long wait. I was expecting to be queuing for like ages and ages and ages, and be having to like fight old men called Keith who were adamant that they were before me in the queue. But no, I was there for like 5 minutes and then I got a seat, and I was like, sweet.
Nice. Did they
Yeah.
have their face mask, like shield things?
No, they just had the the
Normal.
typical masks that people are wearing and things. And I don't normally try and start conversations with barbers. I'm like, just shut up and cut my hair. But I tried to be sociable, and he just pied me off with one word answers.
Really?
I'm never speaking to him ever again. Fuck that guy. Even though he did a good job.
How long did he spend on your hair then? Did it
I,
take
re-
long?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you, mate. There was a lot to cut off, and he did a good job, and I'm pretty happy with it. Even though halfway through I was kind of like, "What is he doing? This doesn't look right." I didn't feel right because he just kind of let the hair flop down here like a fringe, and I was like, I didn't ask for a fringe. Don't give me a fringe." But no, I feel good about it now. I feel good. Have you
Good.
got, have you gone to get it yet, or are you just keeping it at it as is?
No, so I got it cut at home, which I was a bit skeptical over to begin with because I had it cut to begin with first time, which wasn't very well, and second time was much better. And literally the second time I got it cut, I could actually go to people in the street because I've got a dog and I walk the dog. And as you very well know, I've got a dog. Um, Walk them, and people speak to you because you've got a dog, and they're actually sociable. So beforehand, I was like, oh, I've got a hood up, I need a hat or something like that. Now it's like, oh yeah, I can actually speak to you. I've got the confidence to do it.
Exactly, yeah, because I don't look like a homeless person.
Yeah, I do have a home, I promise.
I do actually have a roof to live under and not just a cardboard box.
Yeah.
So, so
So,
how?
what did you want to speak about today?
So,
Because I'll admit I've come very underprepared. Had a very busy day,
mm,
and about an hour ago, I've got my first bit of food into my stomach, and I haven't stopped since. So, if I'm lagging a
so
little bit,
you've
it's
just
just
been like,
yeah, basically
brilliant,
chimney, just chucking food down a chimney is what
nice.
my gut's been like.
Yeah, that is what's it called? Intermittent fasting to the extreme.
Yeah, only 1 hour of eating in the day, because that's good for you, isn't it?
Yeah, because that's how you're meant to do intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
So I drew up a list earlier, and the first big headline that caught my eye was Ghislane Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's partner for a long time, even though they never married, although they were together for a long time. She's recently been arrested by, I think it was the FBI, who
Okay.
basically decided that she was a what's known as a flight risk. So it was very possible that she could have fled the country and then been protected by some somebody who's incredibly powerful in order to escape justice, basically. And so she's now been arrested, and she's staying in, I think, the same prison block that Jeffrey Epstein stayed in.
I mean, you didn't really need to continue where I'm pretty sure everyone's thoughts would go to.
Well, we're going to find her dead very soon in a week or so, aren't we?
Yeah, let's hope not. But yeah, I heard the news and I was actually quite glad that it's happened because,
Mm,
as I said to you, I think in our previous podcast when we talked about this whole documentary, I said, well, why is it that she was providing him with all these girls? It's a bit weird.
mm,
And when that happened, I was like, well, no one's really paying any attention to her, but she was like one of the main um, figures who was actually being controlled by him potentially. I mean, I don't know the whole story behind it, but it, it wasn't right. And of course, now the FBI, or beforehand, I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing stuff in the background. Let's just
mm.
hope that they're actually keeping her safe from people that are not supposed to be there.
Exactly right. Like I saw a headline which basically said that people who are close to her, they were saying that they believed that she was going to turn everything over, that she was going to turn over everything that she knew about Jeffrey and about who was connected with him, which I think is probably the biggest revelation, because we know that Clinton was connected to him, Bill Clinton, and Prince Andrew as well. And there's only going to be more people. There's only going to be more.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading these articles saying that she's not going to rat out Prince Andrew because he gave her first break or whatever.
Yeah.
But she'll rat out the likes of Piers Morgan and I have many others.
I never heard his name mentioned. Really?
There's pictures of them together. Yeah, and of course with what's his name? Just mentioned him.
You just said Piers Morgan.
No, the other guy.
Prince Andrew? Donald Trump?
Clinton, sorry.
Yeah, Bill
Completely
Clinton.
lost my train of thought. This is where the food has just come into my
stomach
and the blood's going to a different place. Not that place, before you say anything. Clinton, where I even read an article saying that Hillary's going to rat him out herself because she knows stories. And of course, Bill had a affair or something. I don't really know very well, but of course, in 2002
no. So when he was president, he basically got his dick sucked by his secretary.
Wasn't there a prostitute though?
No. She was. What? I don't know if she was exactly a secretary. She basically worked in the White House, and then they ended up forming a bit of a relationship, and she blew him. And the Republicans, because he was a Democrat, put a massive inquiry into it, and they found that she did in fact suck his dick, even though he came out and said in his dreary Southern accent,
it didn't happen.
Yeah, I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Yeah, that's when Hillary turned crooked, then, wasn't it?
Exactly right.
Fucking American politics, don't even get me started.
Oh my god, it's mental.
But the whole thing about her going in the same cell as Epstein, that's so shady, because surely...
I don't know if it's the same cell, but it's definitely the same prison.
Well, even the same prison, like surely if someone's already infiltrated it once and managed to get through to the prisoner, it's not going to be too difficult doing it again.
No, definitely not. Well, you'd hope if it's the FBI that they're a little bit more on it than, I don't know who arrested him beforehand, but you'd hope that they...
It would have to be federal police though, wouldn't it? Because it was done in a few states.
Yeah, there were crimes committed in different states. You're right, actually.
Yeah, so it wouldn't have been just a local sheriff or whatever.
Okay, that's a good point, actually. But another thing I saw was the fact that there's pictures of him and Ghislane with Donald Trump and Melania as well. Oh yeah, there's a whole Trump quote. Do you not remember at the beginning of the Epstein doc?
No.
Oh, hang on.
The only one I remember is at the end when Donald Trump was like, "Oh yeah, what did he say? Jeffrey was always a shady man. I never trusted him. It's very bad."
No.
Something along those lines.
Oh, that's such a Trump quote. But no, hang on. I think I've got it. Oh, come on, New York Times, give it to me.
It's a bit weird. Why'd you ask New York Times to do that?
Oh dear. Trump apparently said that he was a terrific guy. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. Hang on. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. He even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side.
Yeah, on the younger side. That little bit reminded me of it. Yeah.
Oh,
it's not good. But then again, didn't Trump say that he would date his daughter if it wasn't his daughter?
Oh, he did. And there's so many creepy photos of Donald Trump with his daughter. Hang on.
Do we want to see them?
Yes, we do. We definitely want to see them. Melania photos. Oh, not Melania. What's his daughter's name?
I don't know. He's got like 5 of them, hasn't he?
Donald Trump daughter. Oh God, this is my search history. Oh, Ivanka. Ivanka.
Not very American names, are they?
No, but then his wife is
Serbian or something, isn't she?
yeah, so like one of them countries.
Well, that's racist.
Oh no, looks like we're getting cancelled here, boys. Sorry. What is that? Oh no.
Is that his wife or his daughter?
That's his daughter. That's definitely his daughter.
Weird.
Oh man. There's another one that I want to see if I can find. Yep, that one. There you go. That's her. Oh, it's right. For the people listening, it's a picture of Donald Trump and Ivanka. Ivanka is sat on the bed, basically next to him, kissing his neck, his cheek rather.
I mean, she did look about 12 in that one. So.
Oh yeah, and she looks so young. Oh, this is so fun.
I wonder if, because of course you have the likes of Kevin Spacey, you have the likes of Piers Morgan, you have the likes of Bill Clinton. I'm sure there'll be so many more. Now it's just a matter of how many more, isn't it? If she's actually alive, that is, and she doesn't get murdered, or sorry, she commits suicide.
Yeah, exactly. If she conveniently ends up committing suicide.
Jumping off a fucking 1 meter bunk bed and killing herself by strangling herself. Yeah, because that's a very convenient way of killing herself, isn't it?
That's very, very likely indeed. I don't know what you're on about. I've seen so many people die from those 1 meter
Well,
jumps.
it's just that one prison, actually. Those bunk beds are a bit slippery when you're on the top. You just kind of fall off it, and then...
Exactly, yeah. And you just end up, landing on your chin, and, that just breaks everything, and then you can't breathe anymore. That's just how it is.
If we've got any American prison officers listening to this, they're definitely going after us. That's for sure.
Oh, shit. Oh, well. Right. But basically, with Ghislane, the whole thing's fucked, and hopefully she's able to actually rat everyone out, because that would be amazing if she could. I want to hear everything.
But also, it's very interesting because I don't think that she should get away with it. I feel like she will want immunity if she rats everyone out, and I don't think she should get away with it to rat everyone else out, because she was the one who's essentially, not pulling the strings, you know what I mean, but she was the second person behind all that saga.
Yeah, I mean, it's the price that you pay for actually revealing this kind of information, I guess, because what you're basically trying to decide is it worth granting this person who did some bad things immunity in order to get information on how potentially hundreds of other people also committed terrible acts? That's the trade-off that you have to make, and that's the decision that they'll have to decide, basically. I feel like I would want to know everything that happened and how it went down so that they can actually be arrested, as opposed to going to just lock her up and then potentially not having all the information revealed.
Well, I personally think she will rat people out, because you would want immunity, wouldn't you? Like, if you knew that you would have been the only one, essentially, going in, and you've got however many hundreds to potentially prove and get you out, you would rat them out. So it's only a matter of, like you say, it's getting the right balance with making sure that she gets her way a little bit, and then that the others get their way a little bit. And when I mean by getting their way, I mean spending enough time in prison to make them realize how horrific those acts are and what they've
Yeah,
done.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm gonna move on now. Did you also see what happened with Huawei? Because Huawei is obviously this Chinese phone manufacturer, and they were going to be a part of the UK building 5G,
Yeah.
and the UK government has now decided that Huawei is no longer going to be a part of this. And you're smiling a lot there, Dan. What have you got to say about
I'm
this?
giggling to myself. I've heard a lot of pronunciations of that word, of the
Oh yeah.
Chinese broadband company or phone company.
How should I be saying it?
I don't know what's the right way. I just find it funny every way. Every different person pronounces it as.
How do you say it?
I thought it was Huawei.
Huawei.
See, there's no right or wrong, is there?
Oh, that's brilliant. But no, they're not going to be included in building 5G, which doesn't come as much as a surprise to me, given the fact that all the security concerns that come along with letting a Chinese state-owned company be a part of your infrastructure. Because we've also seen them be banned in Canada over security concerns, and they arrested Huawei's, oh god, it was like chief CFO or something like that. And China retaliated by arresting a bunch of random Canadians in order to get back at them. That's how they
That
do
sounds
it.
very Chinese, and it sounds very Chinese. Yeah, I don't think they should have been let here in the first place. And I know Boris Johnson got his fair share of shit when he said that they can be part of the UK infrastructure. And then they, of course, went back over that decision, as they have been doing over quite a few decisions over the last few months, really.
Yep.
But looking at it, they shouldn't have had any access to it in the first place.
No, they shouldn't.
As simply put, they can't be trusted. There is shady communist Chinese party-sponsored company, which I personally don't trust, and I think it puts a lot of cybersecurity threat on the West if you let them come into the infrastructure here.
Yeah, because there's when we're talking about a Chinese company, it's completely different to other companies. So if we use the example of Apple, for example, the US government managed to confiscate an Apple iPhone that was used by a terrorist of some form, and they had it, and they wanted Apple to give over to be able to unlock it so that they could see all the data that was inside it. And
Yeah.
Apple basically refused because they didn't want the government to be able to get into every single iPhone and see everything, even though they're spying on everyone anyway.
Yeah.
So Apple was able to say no, but Huawei is owned by the Chinese government, and they have strong links to Chinese officials. Like, they can't say no, because then they'll just, someone will strong arm them. They'll be kicked out of their job, and then they'll just get access anyway.
It won't be kicking out the job. It will be a gun to the head. You give us the details. If you don't give us the details, that's it. There's
He'll
not really
commit
much.
suicide.
Yeah, or having a very convenient heart attack. It's one of those things where it's been done by the communists in the ex-Soviet Union 30 odd years ago, and on. Now it's being done by the Chinese Communist Party, which they, funnily enough, have a democracy in China. The Communist Party wins at every single election by like a country mile. It's just not a party that you can trust, especially when everything that's been going on for the last few months, when they have basically been paying the WHO. Not saying they have, but there is potential to it to cover up this whole shit that's caused to the world. So if you've got a party doing that, either they're making it in the lab or they're trying to cover it up. Either way, they're at fault.
Yeah.
You've got to have some kind of scenario where there is a lack of trust.
Yeah. I mean, going on from your thought about the WHO, there is some plausibility to that, because who's the head of the WHO? It's Tedros something or other. He's from Ethiopia, And basically, China has been funding a bunch of projects in Ethiopia to kind of build up their infrastructure and everything like that. So there is definitely some, in my mind, there's some credibility to the thought that they could be influencing him. And the one thing as well that made me laugh as well was when some WHO official who was quite high up was asked about Taiwan. He said, "Oh yes, all the areas of China are doing really well with this pandemic, even though Taiwan is not a part of China." And then he just refused to answer the question and just logged off.
Well, it's just the same thing. We talked about corruption within FIFA. This is very much corruption just within an organization that's political. You've got the wife of, what's his name? Is it Zhang Ping or whatever the...
Xi Jinping?
That's it. The Prime Minister President equivalent of China. His wife is one of the lead ambassadors for WHO.
Really?
Like, yeah.
I didn't know that. Fuck.
Yeah. The conspiracy in there, again, like we were saying, chronism. You've hired a mate to be an ambassador. That mate's going to go pull some strings for you, and we're going to cover up against the rest of the world to cover our asses, basically, about what we're doing wrong. And it's horrific because it's only going to get worse and worse with what they're doing in the South China Sea. They're just taking over it, and the whole world's just not really batting an eye on it.
I mean, we could spend a whole hour talking about some of the dodgy things the Chinese government has done, and I mean, included within that is what they're doing with the Uyghurs in Western China. Do you know about this?
Not heard about it. You might need to elaborate.
Oh, so there's a fucking awesome documentary by Vice. I know Vice is kind of they cover a lot of shit, but this documentary was fucking amazing. Uyghurs are basically a Turkic population within China, in Western China. So they're kind of more related to like Turkmenistan and kind of those former post-Soviet countries. And their main religion, obviously, is Islam. Now, the Chinese government is technically an atheist society, and they've
I know where you're going with this now. You've mentioned it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This leads on to those concentration camps that they've set up because they want independence from China in the same way that Tibet also wants independence from China, because they want to be able to practice their religion and live freely as well. So there's clear evidence that China has been putting these people into concentration camps and re-education camps like the Vietnamese did after their war. And now there are reports coming out that they're also sterilizing them, which is fucked beyond belief.
Well, it's just like the residents of Hong Kong. They want independence, but they're not getting it because the Chinese are doing whatever they want. So it's the Chinese trying to become the most powerful nation in the world and trying to have all the power in everything, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's infrastructure, in anything possible, and to run out the Western world, basically, where the rest of the world will be dependent on them. With how things are going, that's probably going to be how it is going to be in what I would say 20 years, if that.
Do you know what? I was thinking about this earlier. Like the 19th century, that was the real rise of the British Empire, right? And then the 20th century saw the fall of that by sort of the 20s, right? And then you saw the rise of the US as the world's leading empire, I guess. Now we're seeing the US start to fall, and now China is starting to really expand and exert its influence. So I really do believe that China is going to be the next world superpower in 30 years, which is a scary prospect given what, shitty things they've done and will continue to do until someone stands up to them.
Well, you say someone. It's going to be a nuclear bomb that's going to have to stand up.
Do you really think that?
Well, it will be, won't it? When you
there will be a conflict.
They're trying to do things their own way, and it's in my opinion, it's a very wrong way of going about things. You're not really going to have peace with killing people and covering things up and doing whatever you want to do. whether that's the right thing that previous empires have done or not, that's something that you can learn from it. But they're not going to care, because they're just doing whatever they want to do to get to that power. And someone who is from the Western world, it is a very scary thing. You're only going to get one person, like as you say, stand up to them a little bit more, and then it's going to piss off the Chinese with what Boris is saying now to the Hong Kong residents, that he's going to allow them to reside here. And now the Chinese are saying, oh, don't get involved. So it's like, well, hang on a second. There's already something rising there. There's going to be a bit of friction within the UK and the Chinese. And then it's not going to be long until the Americans are going to have even more friction with the Chinese. Whoever the next president is going to be of the US is going to have a lot of problems with the Chinese. And it's going to rise up like that with EU potentially, with, you know, if the countries within the EU are going to actually stand up to human rights and going to stand up to what's right, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. So with that regard, I don't really see the conflict getting any better. And people saw, you know, Iran and North Korea and all these countries being threatening, and which they are to a certain extent, but the Chinese are getting to be more threatening and more scary than anyone could imagine, because the Chinese have more people in their cybersecurity department in the reserves or something like that than the US Army has alone in their cybersecurity, full stop. Very wrong, not very wrong, sorry, very vague details, but the numbers of people that are in the Chinese army overpopulate the number of people in the American army. And it's just little things like that where, I'm going slightly off topic now, but where the innovation begins in the Western world and then it's sent out to China to be manufactured. There's no patent laws or copyright laws in China where they can just copy it. They don't need to innovate it. They literally can just copy it, and they've got a product out of nothing. It's so easy and simple for them to innovate a rocket that's been innovated by the Western world, for example, where how does the Western world battle its own weapons when they can just do them in a click of a finger?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that with cars, for example, where they'll just straight up steal copies of Western cars. Like I remember Minis were one, and BMWs were another, and they were sued for it, and the Chinese government went, "We don't know what you're on about," and they just kept on doing it. But I don't know whether the US would intentionally outsource that kind of thing, whether they would say, we're going to build rockets and things over there.
That probably was an extreme, that example, but you got my point with
technologies and things like that.
Yeah. You've got, you know, all the Apples, where are they built? They're built in China. It literally says it on the back of them. It says designed in California, built in China, or manufactured in China, which says it all, really. If they manufacture them in China, what says that the Chinese people can't actually break into the Apple systems and read what people with iPhones send to each other? Do you know what I mean? It's not rocket science, I don't think, when you've been manufacturing so many products for so many years in one country, where if someone really wanted to crack it, it wouldn't be too hard.
Well, do you know the other thing that leads on to as well was, because India banned TikTok, which is a Chinese app. I mean, if you don't know about TikTok, then get on it, boomer. But
don't get on it.
No, TikTok's funny, man. I like it. It's the humor on there, because it's basically, I think of it like moving memes. Like, it's the humor there is really sarcastic, and I love it so much. But basically, India's banned TikTok. I'm pretty sure Australia might have banned it as well. But yeah, you know, they're talking about the US is weighing up whether or not to ban TikTok, which is obviously owned by the Chinese state. So again, there's another security risk there. So we're just going to see more and more of this as time goes on.
Yeah, it's really sad, but like you say, it is going to get worse until it's going to get to a Donald Trump or something like that to say, do you know what? The Chinese virus has done enough. China's bad. and he's going to press the big red button because he's going to think it's funny, and then that will be it for all of us.
Your Trump accent.
It was really good, wasn't it?
Oh, mate, I'd give up the day job. Just do that for a living.
That's it. I've been practicing. I haven't been sleeping. I've been practicing at night, looking at the mirror and doing the Donald Trump accent.
Oh, fucking hell. No, but one thing I will give you is that Donald Trump is quite funny at times. Like he called. Go on.
That's what his public demeanor is about, isn't it? It's getting the publicity. Doesn't matter if he's stupid, if he's, I mean, I was going to say smart, but he's never smart. So,
He's never smart.
Yeah, all these stupid stunts are all about publicity. It's just about him being mentioned in the media, and that's what he is about. I saw, before you continue, sorry, I saw this news reporter saying that when she met Donald Trump, he was literally asking her about all these things, and he literally wanted to come across as someone who was interested in her purely because she was a news reporter, and he knew how to appeal to her. So she would be like, oh, Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that, and then she would go and write about him and talk about him. And he very well knew how to play along to the people in the media who had some sort of say. So then they would be playing off him and, giving him that publicity that he wants.
Yeah, because they're more likely to put people on that they actually like, rather than just some like Bernie, for example. They don't really like Bernie, and you rarely see any of his stuff reported ever, his good and his bad.
I think he's a bit too extreme for America.
Which is crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I don't really pay too much attention to American politics, I've got to say so.
Fair enough.
I just don't want to lose brain cells, to be honest. It's either one extreme or the other, in my opinion. Don't kill me, but all I'm saying is that in America, it's all about campaigning, isn't it? If you're good at campaigning, that's all that really matters.
Exactly. And you've obviously got things like name recognition and how much you can get on to certain platforms to promote yourself and things like that. So that's another big thing. But coming back to the whole China thing, I mean...
Yeah, went a little bit off topic there, as we always do.
It's fine. What I was getting at with Huawei and all of that is that the Chinese government could basically just infiltrate our social media and everything just like that because of them being involved in the setup of our 5G, which apparently is causing coronavirus.
Is it not? I thought it was.
Yeah, I helped burn down that radio tower a couple of months ago. That was a big deal. Because you remember that was a conspiracy.
Yeah, it was. It's quite funny.
Man, people will really believe anything, won't they?
Well, in about 10 years' time, we'll see if it's true or not. We'll probably know even then.
I mean, you'd hope we would know by about a year's time or so.
Yeah. Well, let's hope by a year's time, life's going to be back to normal.
Oh, I would really hope so. I want to be able to travel again.
I want to be able to live again.
You really...
I was literally saying it to my girlfriend today. I made a really, really bad joke because all I do, the most human interaction I get is basically speaking to a few people at work. And that's very much the most I get. And I made a very bad joke today. And I realized how lame my jokes have gotten because I literally have no socialization. And I went, oh, I've changed so much.
Oh, I had that absolutely. Each time with my family, I try and make a joke, it just falls flat on its face. Maybe I'm just not funny in general, but...
It could be that.
Just give this up now. Just stop.
I just remembered, by the way, I know we've moved away from the topic, but we talked about Epstein's girlfriend and whatnot, whatever her name is, Maxwell. And of course, the Madeleine McCann case was brought back up again the billionth time in however many years that just, still going on. She looks very much like the suspect they're looking for in that case, doesn't
Yeah,
she?
there was an Australian woman who, I don't know if you saw the Madeleine McCann documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bit in it where there's a man in Barcelona. He gets asked by a woman, do you have my baby? And this was on the night, I believe, of McCann's disappearance, or maybe the day after.
Okay.
And she's an Australian woman, and she looks so similar to Ghislane Maxwell. And, you know, people are putting two and two together in terms of like the pictures and the fact, obviously, that
she's a pedo.
Yeah, the fact that she's a massive fucking nonce. And so, you know, people are thinking, well, is this where Maddie's gone? Which would be mental if that were to be true.
I would be surprised if she's still alive. I'm not going to lie, as sad as it sounds.
Yeah.
My theory is, basically, right, you ready for it?
Go on.
So you know her parents were, or still are, doctors?
Yeah, her dad's a GP, I think.
Yeah. So I reckon, because the girl was so tired, they drugged her or something along those lines, gave her a bit of whatever, too much of it. She was out of it, and they realised they gave her too much, that she was like too out of it. They wanted to go out, of course, that night. That's why they gave her that drug, or whatever the reason was, whatever the treatment, I think I should say, was, for her to be tired. So they realised that she was too drugged up, she could potentially die. And him being a GP, he could have lost his license if that was to happen, you know, let alone go to prison and all that stuff. So they just went, oh, well, let's just sell her. And I don't know. People are weird. Like we were saying, you know, people rape kids. And if you get a bit of money, when the amount of recognition that they got and the amount of money they got to pay off all their mortgages, the amount of money they got to, you know, go on these holidays afterwards, and apparently that they miss Maddie and all that, went and, yeah.
That's crazy.
Do you think that's too extreme?
I definitely don't think they would have sold her. But, you know, the fact that the idea that they may have overdosed her on some kind of sleeping pill or whatever is entirely possible. How much? I mean, right. So for this to have happened, they would have had to get there, realize that she was not waking up, and they'd have had to have taken her where and given her to whom exactly, and what would they have done with the body, because she's presumed to be dead by this point.
Well, you saw him, or you didn't see, but there was someone who said that they think that they saw him with a blonde girl walking out of the hotel room, whatever, and she was very sleepy on his arm, or whatever it was. He had her in his arms, and they walked away. At that point, she could have been dead, and he could have placed her somewhere by the beach until the morning, until they sorted all their things out. Maybe she wasn't dead. Maybe she was just in a critical condition where they didn't want to go to the authorities with it, because he is or was a GP, and he could have got into so much shit for doing that. They just went, oh, well, we'll just, you know, we'll get away with it. And they took us to some backstreet doctor or whatever. And then him, I don't know. I don't think details. I just think the generic. And I'm just trying to paint a picture for you what could have happened, because it is a very big possibility. Him being a GP, he would have had some sort of a powerful position. Word got out of hand before they went on holiday. Oh, there's this bloke called Jeff Epstein, whatever his name is. He does finances. If you ever need finances, but they had a few drinks. You never know, do you? The world's small.
Yeah, but you know, I really do question whether he would have been that well connected to Jeffrey would have been able to connect to
He
someone
might
like
not have been. He
Epstein
might
in the
not have
first
been whatever his name is, Epstein, but it could have been someone who was a mutual friend of either of them, and it could have had some sort of connection. You don't know what goes on in that ring of people where the twisted thoughts of these people could lead on to some weird shit.
Mm. There would be a very, very elaborate way of guessing this child.
It might be a little bit too complicated for what I'm saying, but
I,
how else would they have known Ghislane Maxwell? How would she have been connected to being a suspect in Madeleine McCann's case?
well, okay. I'm going to try and come up with a storyline for how she could have been involved.
Yeah.
Because there were reports on the week of Maddie's disappearance of creepy men kind of lurking around the town that they were in. And there was an incident where a man broke into a house, was looking at this woman's child, and then as she came downstairs, and then he obviously ran away as soon as she saw him without taking the child, thankfully. So there's evidence that there were men that were clearly out to abduct children that week. So, and then there's a report that, the woman that saw the man carrying the young blonde child walking away, there's a report that that man supposedly looked like the man that was in the woman's house earlier in the week. So there's a potential link there. So then you're looking at basically the idea that this man could have been paid to abduct children for a larger network. So was that potentially a part of an Epstein network, or was it some seedier network that we're just not aware of yet? And I think that's much more plausible and much more likely to happen than someone having a direct link to Epstein. But not a cool thing to think about, but it's an interesting thought experiment to see how they could have been linked together.
Yeah, and it could, as you say, we'll probably never know. And if we do,
which is very sad.
Could be a mixture of both. Could be completely wrong thoughts, and it could have been a complete weird situation where they couldn't have met each other there, and it was a coincidence that they did. We don't know, do we? So
exactly,
it's all just thoughts.
Exactly, just throwing ideas out there.
Yeah, that's dangerous, isn't it?
I know, right? We could get cancelled for this shit.
I think we're being quite mild as well. We could go off and
we could. Well, we need to get 10 listeners, and then we can actually talk about this shit.
We've got 9 listeners. That's quite impressive.
No. That's my listener aim before we can actually talk about this shit. That's my aim.
I thought it was 3 listeners: me, you, and me.
and you just repeating it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I feel like that's a good point on which to end this episode.
And if you are the 4th or 5th or 6th listener, or if we're being really lucky, could be the 7th. Thank you very much for listening. This episode was a little bit different to what we would do. I think they're a little bit rarer than the sport ones or the film or series commentaries that we do and all that sort of stuff. So thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and tune in for more.
Yeah. Cheers if you got to this point, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers.